Hello and a very warm welcome to the Adventure Show. This month we're heading to some of the most remote parts of the country. We're off to the far northwest for what's been described as the toughest marathon in the UK, the Cape Wrath Challenge. It goes over some pretty tricky terrain and climbs nearly 2,500 feet.
It's tough, but it's lovely. It's beautiful scenery, stunning.
Bleak, startling, surprising, beautiful, fantastic.
Oh, brilliant, but tough. Didn't realise it was so uphill, but lovely scenery.
Plus we'll be joining a few hundred intrepid backpackers as they head across magnificent mountains and through wild glens from west coast to east coast for the annual TGO Challenge. How did that get in there?
Usually it's noodles and a pour-on sauce and porridge for breakfast. It's a good way of life and it's away from all the stress and strain of everyday living.
Also in this month's programme, we'll be finding out just how much you really need to carry when you head into the hills. We'll be joining Cameron McNeish on one of his favourite mountains, and Duncan McCallum will be discovering some of the best food on offer in the northwest. But first to the west coast and that trip across Scotland from sea to sea. Lindsay Cannon's with some of the challengers at the very start of their journey.
We've just left the port of Mallaig at the start of what's claimed to be the world's biggest backpacking event, the TGO Challenge. 300 hill walkers, about 50 of them, on the boat with me this morning, and they're going to spend the next 14 days crossing Scotland coast to coast. And what a day to start. Absolutely beautiful as we head off to Knoydart.
The main rules about the challenge are there are no rules. People can start in a lot of different places on the west coast and really make their own routes, and they can finish almost anywhere on the east coast. It means that people get dispersed, they get spread out. We don't want long crocodiles of folk walking the same way, and it doesn't turn out that way. There's an infinite flexibility of routes. You can go high. We've had people doing Ben Nevis. We've other people who just wander through the glens and get equally as much pleasure out of it.
Roger Smith has organised this event from its very beginning over a quarter of a century ago.
The only pressure is on yourself if you create it, but the non-competitive nature of the event is very, very important because people can relax, they can enjoy it and do it in their own time. It's a holiday, relax and enjoy it.
This will be my fourth crossing, fingers crossed if I get across. So.
Why do you keep coming back then?
I don't know, it's addictive, it's very addictive, and you forget the blisters and all the rest of it, just remember the good bits.
I see you've got emergency supplies in the pocket, banana.
Always carry an emergency banana, essential piece of equipment.
Good for energy?
Well, yeah, so they say, we'll find out later on.
And this is it. For this group of challengers, the start is on the remote peninsula of Knoydart. From now on, they'll be carrying everything they need on their backs.
What have you got in there? You got tent, camping gear, stoves,
sleeping bags,
sleeping gear, food.
Waterproofs, just in case. That's where it changes.
Clothes. Yeah,
would be nice.
Let's see. Right, let's see. What weight?
That's about 40 pounds.
Good job. You're a strong lad. Do you want a hand? Where's the tongue? That's heavy.
You can carry it for me if you like.
Eat some of that food as quickly as you can. That's my advice. The challenge is to spend 2 weeks walking across Scotland. The first thing they've done, headed straight for the pub. I like the style.
Every year the challenge has grown from strength to strength, and the 300 places are massively oversubscribed. And people don't just come from Scotland or even Britain. 60-year-old Mark Alvarez has travelled here from across the Atlantic.
Where I walk in the States, the trails are very well defined. It's very difficult to get off a trail, and in fact, we seldom use a map, we use mostly a guidebook. So this is very different.
Probably make it quite interesting for you, though, to see what it's like underfoot, you know, walking in the Scottish mountains.
Very, very. And, you know, planning the walk, I really like the Ordnance Survey system of the grids. We don't do it that way in the States, and this makes it pretty easy to figure out where you are and how to get to the next spot.
This is Mark's first challenge, but this year the record for people travelling the furthest must surely be held by Di Gerard, who's travelled from her adopted home of Kazakhstan.
I've always loved Scotland. I love walking in Scotland. I've always spent my free time walking and climbing in the hills from when I was about 6. So that being in the mountains is part of what makes a challenge for me.
Di's doing this year's event with her Kenyan boyfriend Nagumu Karugu.
Basically it's my job, because basically that's where we met. I've been guiding up Mount Kenya. So I've been a guide for Mount Kenya for almost like 5 years. So it's my part of what I do for my living, and I just love it to be out there, and it's beautiful.
But this will be a challenge neither of them will ever forget.
This time we're here not only to walk across Scotland but to get married at the end of it. A bit of a crazy plan, a bit of a crazy way round to do it, but it seemed like while we were here it was a good thing to do.
There is a bit of a tradition of people meeting up on the challenge and eventually ending up as life partners, which is wonderful. We certainly have a far better record than the blind date TV programme on marriages, that's for sure.
But it's not only younger people who rise to the TGO challenge. 2 of the oldest participants, and most definitely life partners, Tim and Kate Wood, are now on their 10th crossing.
We spent from before Christmas working out our route, finally getting it vetted, agreed, and then deciding on the food, the clothes. It takes up a lot of our time. What would we do in the winter if it wasn't for the challenge?
The magic of the mountains, and we get into some really wild places, and the emotional beauty of the hills and the glens, they're just breathtaking. And when you wake up in the morning and you're under canvas, you wake up in the morning, say by a lochside, and it's still and peaceful, and you can't explain it. I think unless you've actually done it, it's very difficult to understand.
It's just lovely, it's beautiful. I just don't have words for Scotland. It's beautiful, stunningly beautiful.
We'll be joining the backpackers again later when they're halfway through their trip, but first Desiree Wilson's been finding out just how little gear you can get away with in the hills.
Which of these rucksacks would you rather carry? This one or this one? They both have everything you need for a 2-week trip like the TGO challenge, but one weighs significantly more than the other. 2 weeks is nothing for long distance walker Chris Townsend, and he's going to show me just how you can reduce the weight of your rucksack to a minimum.
I think we've already seen that there's a significant difference between these rucksacks, and that is very important if you want to enjoy your walk. It's very easy to carry a load that's so heavy that it's painful and uncomfortable, and all you want to do is take it off. And if we look at what we've got here in these 2 packs, I mean, the first thing is the actual rucksacks themselves. This one is made of very heavy material, it's got lots of padding, it's massive. This one, which weighs about a third as much, doesn't have all the different features, but if you haven't got a heavy load, you don't need all the padding and so on. And then if we look inside and see what sort of things we carry, and say tent, for example. Now, this is a small, lightweight tent. You can get even lighter ones than this, but this weighs roughly 1.5 kilos, 3.5 pounds. You wouldn't camp on the Cairngorm Plateau in a blizzard, so that's not what we're talking about. But other than that, it's fine. There's plenty of room, you can store gear, you can cook, you can put it up in 5 minutes. Unless you're really hardcore, you still need a sleeping mat. You've got to have something comfortable to lie on in the tent. You can buy a really comfortable, massive mat that fills half your rucksack and weighs 2-3 kilos. Or you can get one like this, which is a self-inflating mat that packs up to that size.
So what have we got in here by comparison? So we've got sleeping bag.
Wow. Yep, okay, sleeping bag. The difference is enormous, and this one will squash down much smaller if you need it to. I mean, this one will squash a bit, but it's still going to be, as you can see, three times the size, and I would guess 3 times the weight at least. But this bag will still keep you warm down to freezing point.
So what else have we got?
Good grief.
Gas?
Gas.
Lots of gas?
Well, that amount of gas would certainly last me for at least 3 weeks without resupply. This is the total of my cooking gear. That's everything, including the gas.
Including gas.
And the stove and the pans. This is the pot. The gas canister fits inside the pot, so it's tiny, as you can see, compared with that one. And I've got one pot which doubles as a mug because it's small, so that's my drinking mug. And as you can see, a pot that is smaller than either of those, and that's all I need is a cooking pot. And there's also in here a wonderful flexible spork, which is knife, fork and spoon all in one ultralight unit.
So Chris, what difference does all this reduction in weight make to how much you enjoy a trip?
It makes a huge difference because carrying weight takes effort, so you get much more tired. The lighter you'll pack, the less tired you'll be, especially going up hills, so the more you'll enjoy your trip.
And now we're heading to the far northwest for that toughest of all marathons, the Cape Wrath Challenge. And it's not just tough. This competition is a world away from your run-of-the-mill road race.
Can't have you in the front. It has 2 or 3 unique aspects to it. The first one being that it involves a ferry crossing, and I don't think there's any other marathons that do that. The timing is stopped while the runners are ferried over the Kyle of Durness, and then their time is restarted again while they run to the finishing post. It also takes them to the most northwesterly point of the British Isles, which in itself is an achievement that many people wish to do.
And there's a reason why this event begins with a boat trip. The coastline up here is punctuated by huge indentations, such as the Kyle of Durness. The marathon itself starts on the west side of the loch, and from here, the competitors will race 11 miles to the Cape Wrath Lighthouse and 11 miles back. But that's 4.2 miles short of a marathon, so the clock is stopped to ferry them back across the Kyle for the final lap to Durness Village Hall. It may seem complicated, but it's all part of the attraction.
Quite a thrill to go across to the Cape because it's quite difficult to get across, and to organise it also was a good opportunity. To be able to run it, for me, being a runner, was just fantastic. 11 miles out, 11 miles back, and you've got the 4.2 miles at the end.
You come up here with a few hundred people and just get out in the scenery, and you're seeing deer and buzzards, and we were up Ben Hope yesterday and the sun just came out as the cloud lifted. It's just beautiful. You don't get that in a city marathon.
This is my 4th year up at Durness. Come here every year. It's a fantastic week, one of my favourite weeks of the year. It's a combination of things. The scenery is fantastic. The other people you meet running, it's like coming on holiday with old friends, and also the people in the village. You look forward to seeing them as well. And even in bad weather, these runs are just spectacular.
It's excellent weather, perfect weather for running a marathon, and it's a fantastic experience going out there. And that's what really matters.
There are over 250 racers here today, all of whom have to be ferried across the Kyle of Durness, with the fastest competitors setting off last. It's a short trip across the Kyle and a small boat, so that means a lot of crossings. And Duncan McCallum, our master mariner, is right in the thick of it.
Adios. So we're now on the boat going out to the start of the race, and it must be one of the most beautiful and unusual starts to any running race or marathon in the country. The runners are shipped over in relays on the boat over the next 2 hours. So it's 10 seconds to go for the elite runners, and these guys will be hoping to get in as close to the 3 hours as they can, and good luck to them. And they're off on 22 miles of some of the steepest running in any marathon in the country.
Oh no!
This is one of the remotest parts of Britain, but competitors flock here from across the whole of the UK.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. Bye, thanks.
We have had a great response. This is a small community of about 350 people, and since the Cape Wrath Challenge started, we've had 3 families with young children moving to the area. Now that, in percentage terms, is a huge investment in our community. It's children at our school, it's money spent on building houses, and so the challenge has not just brought runners in to run and go, it's brought people in to stay here, and that in itself is what sustainability and development of local communities in this part of the world is about.
And one of those people is this year's race director, Tony Jackson. A former Cape Wrath challenger, he's moved from the northwest of England to the northwest of Scotland.
It's a lifestyle change, completely lifestyle change. Warrington was a bustling new town and cars, traffic jams, and you come here and you can travel 50 miles on a single track road and meet 2 cars. So, I mean, it's just a complete lifestyle change.
And then going from competitor to now race director, is that something that you thought you were going to do?
Because I was a runner and because I know what runners expect, and I did organise or have organised events when I was back in Warrington, so I had some kind of background in terms of the organising point of view, and it just seemed natural, really.
Well, I'm no runner, but I couldn't think of a more spectacular place to go for a marathon than this.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to run anywhere else, and certainly on the Cape side, it's just spectacular views, and it's just it's a joy to run on a 22-mile stretch of road with no traffic.
And this is no ordinary road, it's more like a rough track. And with a total ascent of nearly 2,500 feet, it can feel as hard as running in the mountains, especially as the outward stretch is almost entirely upwards.
Oh, it's just amazing. You can just see the beach, it just takes your breath away. It beats the hell out of running on ordinary roads, but it's just a challenge, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point of doing a tough one was so it was tough. It's an undulating course. For marathon runners, it's very much up and down, but none of the hills. I do a lot of hill running, so for me it doesn't bother me too much. It suits me. You know, they're all manageable, but it's certainly not a course that you could actually run fast. You would never set a personal best on the course, and obviously up here you are liable to get a bit wind as well. It's just because you feel you're away from it, I suppose, up there. You know, it's a good challenge.
The weather for today's Cape Wrath Challengers is amazing. Bright sunshine, blue skies, and just enough wind to help keep them cool.
Feeling the pain now. It's double stitch, just trying to keep going.
I don't know, it feels like a very kind of natural thing to do. It's kind of escapist, and you feel a real sense of freedom when you're running. You know, it's just one of the simple things you can do. You don't need much equipment or anything. You can just, even if you're just going out your house in the city or whatever, you just go. You can just go from your front door. And I don't know, I guess folk have been doing it from time immemorial. You don't need any gadgets or anything. So it's maybe to try and get some kind of escapism from modern life.
So I think there's something primordial about it, particularly in places like this. Sometimes you're sort of running along a ridge, nothing in view. You can imagine this is what our ancestors did.
Things that have been stressing you out or worrying you just kind of lose traction when you're running, and you feel like they're not as important as they were when you were not running, perhaps. So yeah, it's liberating in that respect, definitely.
It's just fun to do, really. You know, all you need is yourself and a pair of trainers. You know, I'm not very good at changing tyres if I've got a flat tyre, and it's just something you can do with lots of friends, and you know, you don't really need any major equipment to do it.
I've been lazy all my life, and I do what I have to do. You do have to do a bit of hard work, but anybody can do it. I keep stressing that. It's fantastic, fantastic.
So it's a thumbs up for the scenery, the weather, and for the event. But as Duncan's discovering, there's a lot more to see and do up here in the far northwest.
Well, it was in family holidays in the northwest of Scotland that I first really discovered my love for all things mountain and mountaineering and climbing. And especially here, where you've got a mix of good and often very bad weather, you have to find other things to do. So bird watching, fishing, scrambling around in beaches, It's all the things that you must do in the northwest of Scotland. And on days like this, where you've got sunshine and clouds and rain, it can't be beaten. On the odd occasion that you might find yourself tent-bound or stuck in your house or your bunkhouse because of inclement weather, there are places to go now. And the Crossball Bookshop is one of the best in the northwest. And it is food for mind and body. Kevin, do you have anything from the latest orange list?
We have all of the shortlist on the shelves.
Yeah.
Shall I show you the...
Please, yes. I was trying to find some in Edinburgh the other day and they didn't have the full stock.
Mm-hmm. The one that appears to be most popular at the moment is this one, the Voluptuous Delights of Peanut Butter and Jam.
Right.
Which is set in Zimbabwe, when it was still Rhodesia, during the period of UDI back in the 1960s.
I might go for that actually. And it leads nicely on to the fact that you also do lots of food here as well. So how do you work the bookshop and the restaurant?
Most of our trade is in the summer. We combine the food and the books and the art gallery so that people eat among the books. And people come in for a cup of coffee sometimes and hand over their credit cards and come to the counter with a large pile of books. We'd been coming up here on holiday for years and we just loved the place. It was always a fantasy to live in Durness, and then one day we just did our sums. Got together a business plan, showed them to the bank, found a property and moved up here, and that was 9 years ago. So there aren't many people who can actually say that they're living where they want to live and doing what they want to do, and me and Sam can say that.
I always knew that I was going to be in the kitchen. This is two hobbies. Kevin's is books and mine food.
Great. Well, can you recommend me a breakfast, and then I can fill the stomach as well?
Well, you know, why don't you try this scrambled eggs with a piece of black pudding from Stornoway?
Sounds perfect. Good. Thank you very much. Well, having been to Stornoway a few times, I can truly say this is the best thing out of the town. When I first came to the Balnakeil craft village, it must have been, it was in the late 60s, and we were dragged here on wet days as a kid, and it really was a window into a completely new world of incense and candles and hippies and tie-dye. So for somebody from the Highlands, it was a little piece of an alternative life that you wouldn't find anywhere else. And whilst the general fabric and look of the buildings might not have changed over the years, the tenants definitely have. So if you're looking for a little boost of energy, Cocoa Mountain is the place. So Paul, tell me, why? Are you a trained chocolatier? How did you start the business?
Well, the chocolate was a hobby of mine. Pure and simply a hobby. And I used to visit these parts, just go walking in the mountains for months and living off rabbits, living off water and porridge, basically, that was it. But one day I was walking through the craft village and I saw this derelict building for sale. I was working in Glasgow, a bit fed up with work perhaps, and I thought, well, maybe in 10 years I'll change my life, do something different. So I bought the building and I was going to spend every holiday coming up here working on the building. The first holiday I came up, I put a stove in and I just found it so hard to leave. I had all these crazy ideas of what I was going to do to make a living, and friends would say to me, Paul, that's such a bad idea, you can't possibly do that. And I started to get a little bit panicky. And then one friend one day just said, look, you've been making these chocolates for a hobby, why not do something with your chocolate? So then James, my business partner, and I went about refurbishing the building. So what you see here is all put together with our own two hands. And I think the day before we opened the business, we were still finishing off the electrics. We had customers knocking on the door and we said, we're not open yet, we don't have chocolates made. And the chap just knocked on the door, opened his wallet.
That's a great start
and said, let me in. He was a German guy. So we let him in and we just never closed the door.
Okay, enough talking, time to sample.
Yeah? Yeah. Let's chop that in half.
Thank you.
Go on, don't be frightened.
It's tremendous. I'm definitely going to have to finish that off. It's really, really good. Well, it used to be the case that it was very difficult to find good food in the north and the northwest of Scotland. But the old schoolhouse in Kinlochbervie is one of the new generation of fine restaurants offering good food in remoter places. Wow, I've had langoustine before, but that is a show and a half. Fantastic. That looks amazing. Nowhere in the world can you get a display like that, and the quality is terrific. They're fresh, and I'm not going to talk, I'm going to eat. Excuse my fingers. Oh, they're beautiful.
Back at the TGO Challenge, they've been walking for a week now, and Lindsay Cannon's in the Monalaith Mountains near Kingusi. You can do this event on your own, as a pair, or in a team of 3 or 4, but finding anyone right now, 100 miles in, could be a bit hit and miss.
Well, there's a surprise.
I recognise you two. I can't believe that, of all the people. Tim, how are you doing?
Fine.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Gosh, you're busy striding along there, no problem. How many miles have you done today?
Oh, we've only, it's a short day today.
Short day, how many? From Lagan. I can't believe it's you two. Honestly, over 300 backpackers crossing Scotland. This isn't set up. I didn't know I was going to bump into this pair. It's lovely to see you. I last saw you in Malig and then in Neudark just as you were setting off.
Yes.
Has it been tough?
It's going well.
It's going very well, actually.
I think it's a challenge, isn't it? You can't have it easy. And I mean, today's an easy day, although the first 3 days were quite hard there.
Yes.
And coming over the Corriaric, that was
a flog, isn't it?
It really is. It really is hard going.
What's the accommodation been like? Have you been camping most of the time?
We've had
two overnights. Rest has been camping.
Rest has been camping.
We camped just off the Corriaric Pass the night before last.
Yeah.
And that was very
Wilderness.
remote.
Wilderness.
Absolute. It was just indescribable.
That was the night I found that slugs enjoy camping too.
Where are you going to camp tonight?
We're not. We're in a B&B tonight.
Excellent.
Oh, we need a wash.
Yeah.
We'll have a wash.
Yeah, you know, there's no aroma coming off the pair of you. You're
that's good.
No, I know, you're fine. So where's your destination?
We're just going down to Newton Moor.
The very best of luck
Thank you
with
very much
the rest of the challenge, which will be about a week long. And
Finishes today?
Yes, a week today.
A week today. Okay, you've not got far to go to Newton Moor.
No, thank goodness.
Do you want a lift?
No.
Good heavens, no. What has been been?
That's a naughty word.
Sorry. Is this your first time?
Yes. Yes. So.
First time in Scotland.
Really? Gosh, you've really gone for a biggie as your first Scottish walk.
Yes.
Although we've been doing a low level route, so it hasn't been, brutally hard. It's just walking every day, and we haven't been walking a lot. So we have
in
a million
New England,
trees.
all forested. You walk, you don't see anything all day long until you get a summit. Then you have a viewpoint. And for the most part, you're not walking through open areas at all.
And we certainly don't have the boggy areas.
You don't have the boggy areas.
No, you never walk through a bog.
We've never walked through
Ever.
bogs before, so that's different.
Bog's good for you. It's part of the Scottish experience, isn't it?
It's soft on the feet.
Yeah,
It's soft
it's
on
soft.
the feet.
Roy and Susan are following one of the lower level routes. Others have their minds set on higher things.
We'll have a go at the mountains if they're there. We're not looking for too much of an easy option, and we're taking advantage of the weather because quite often the Munros are a bit cloudy and wet and can't see anything.
So how many miles is that today?
Oh, it's our biggest day. It's 30 kilometres. So
Oh, that's good going, isn't it?
It's 18 miles, I think, something like that.
First timers?
Yeah, first time. Yeah.
You must feel a bit left out of things though, because so many other people seem to have done this up to 10 times. It seems like it's become an addiction.
I know a lot of them have done a lot more than we have, but they seem to be friendly enough when you bump into them. And we keep seeing them now and again, the same ones.
You can spot them half a mile away as well, the Challenger. I'm sure you can now as well, can't you? That?
Well, the challengers are the ones with the huge rucksacks.
And the plod, certain plod about them, isn't there?
Yours doesn't look too bad actually. Let's see.
Well, we're down on food now, so
Oh no, that is quite,
we've
quite
just
substantial.
resupplied. We had 6 days food, but we're down to, we had nothing as at 2 hours ago, so we just bought some more.
It's very easy to forget about the rest of the world really while you're walking. The main things on your mind are the walking, what you're eating, where you're going to sleep, and where you're going to get your next beer from, and where you're next going to get a shower. And it makes life very simple. It's quite nice. It's quite attractive, that side of things, the simplicity of it.
You don't know what's going on. I mean, we haven't seen a paper since we left home. We've been in a few towns, so you sort of pick up on wee things, but you just sort of...
Football results.
Aye, football. Nothing seems to matter. You just,
day to day, just...
Yeah, it's just getting away from the work and general life. It's just totally different.
When you backpack, you get up when you want to get up. You wait for hopefully a bit of sunshine or a bit of warmth to dry the condensation and the moisture off of your tent. And you pack your tent up and you slowly get going in the morning, and then all you have to do the rest of that day is walk.
Everyone who completes the challenge has an experience they'll never forget, but for some participants it can be a life-changing event. When Avril Goddard made this crossing a few years ago, she was psychologically at rock bottom.
I suppose it sounds a bit melodramatic, but I say to people, well, the challenge saved my life. It saved the quality of life because it meant that I got better perhaps a bit quicker than I would have done otherwise, didn't it?
You walk, you cook a meal, and you sleep. And you go back to nature, you admire the things around you. And it's very, very therapeutic.
I couldn't have got across Scotland without Peter. Basically he held my hand and walked across, and I cried my way across. But we got halfway and Peter said to me, if I said you could give up, you would, wouldn't you? And I said yes, and he said, well, I'm not going to, because it's got to be your decision. And I got on and did it.
One of the rules of the challenge is that you have to carry everything you need on your back. You must cross Scotland unsupported. You are allowed, though, to stay in a B&B, but most of the time, most people stay in a bothy, like this one in Glenfeshie, or they camp, like that lot over there. How's it going?
It's going really well, thank you very much.
What's for supper?
Oh, don't ask. I'm having pot noodles and sausage.
Well, that sounds all right.
Not as good as dried food, but no, it's. As it's our first time, I haven't learnt much about dried food.
So, how about a guided tour of your tent then?
This one?
Let's check this out. It looks very compact.
Well, it's only for short people, that's for sure.
So you've got the thermarest, sleeping bag, map case.
Yeah.
I like this. What?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of folding crockery. So this makes into a
That's
bowl.
very clever.
Or a pouring thing, or a plate, obviously.
And as everyone hunkers down for the night, some in the relative comfort of the bothy and some under canvas, we're heading up into the mountains just behind us here in Glenfeshie with hill walking guru Cameron McNeish.
For most TGO challengers on their annual coast-to-coast walk across Scotland, the Cairngorms form a final and rather formidable barrier. And once across the Cairngorms, most of them think that it's all just downhill to the coast from there. Many of them choose to come through one of the great passes of the Cairngorms, but the bolder of them choose to go over the summit. And that's where we're going today, to the second highest mountain in Britain, the highest mountain in the Cairngorms at 4,300 feet, Ben Macdui. On a good day, the walk from Cairngorm across the plateau to Ben Macdui is an absolute delight. If the weather's nice and warm, you can wear shorts, t-shirt and a pair of sandals. It's fantastic. You would never realise you're walking on the biggest tract of land in Britain, over 3,500 feet. But you know, I've known snow to fall up here every month of the year. And in November 1971, a party of school children left Cairngorm and they were making their way across here to the Curran Memorial Bothy, which used to lie just on the other side of Loch Inbui here. But when they reached this snow-covered hollow just to my right here, they succumbed to the most horrendous storm and they were trapped there for 3 days, only 200 metres away from the hut that would have saved their lives. Several of them died, and that tragedy led to the removal of all these high-level bothies from the Cairngorm Plateau. And if we can take away anything from that dreadful accident, it's the knowledge that sometimes up here in the Arctic Plateau, the weather can be so bad that it's just not compatible with human life, and we simply shouldn't be here. You know, on a grey, dour day like this, it's very easy to become kind of pessimistic and whinging. I remember a number of years ago walking on Avadjan in Wester Ross with an old pal of mine, John Mackenzie, the Earl of Cromarty, and he says to me, Cameron, on days like this, you should focus in on the microscopic. Forget the far-flung views and look at the beautiful lichens, the mosses, look at the lovely wild flowers. And you know, he was absolutely correct, and today coming up the lower slopes of Ben Macdui, we saw globe flowers, we saw butterwort, a real kind of veritable garden of flowers. But up here on the higher slopes, quite close to the summit, I want to show you this flower because this is my favourite. This is called moss campion, and I love it because it just gives this splash of colour in what is otherwise a quite stark and bare and almost quite forbidding landscape. And I kind of like it because it's almost a sort of metaphor for life. And if you kind of think that in the bleakness, in the austerity, in the starkness of this sort of landscape, you can find something of great beauty like this, something that can give you optimism and hope. I think I should have been a minister. The summit of Ben Macdui, 4,300 feet. And you know, there was a time when the local people here thought this was the highest mountain in Britain. And it wasn't until the first big geological survey made Ben Nevis a little bit higher that people in this area wanted to build a great big spire here to take it above the height of Ben Nevis. And you know, I just really wish I could show you the views today. They're views to die for. You can see the real length and breadth of Scotland. And this really is walking on the roof of our country. It's fantastic. It would be amiss of me to bring you up here to the summit of Ben Macdui and not mention Fairless Moor, the great grey man. Back at the end of the 19th century, Professor Dr. Norman Colley, who was an eminent Victorian scientist, the first man to map the Coolin Ridge, a well-known mountaineer, was descending from Macdui when he heard footsteps in the snow behind him. And he said in his own words that he took to his heels and he ran all the way to the shelter of Rothimarcus Forest. Now, he didn't tell anybody about this experience for well over a quarter of a century. A short time later, Dr. A.M. Kellis, another eminent mountaineer, a man who eventually was killed on the first British reconnaissance of Mount Everest, he claimed that not only did he hear footsteps of something following him on Ben Macdui, but he actually saw Fairless Moor. He said he was near the summit and he saw this tall, spectral figure walk out of the Larrigrue, walk round the summit cairn and descend back into the pass again. Were these figments of their imagination? Did they actually see something? Well, more recently, Sir Hugh Rankin of Blairgowrie said that we shouldn't be concerned or worried about Fairless Moor. We shouldn't be frightened by the idea of encountering this figure on Ben Macdui, because Rankin is a devout Buddhist, and he claims that what these men saw was one of the Bodhisattva, the 5 perfect beings who control the destiny of the world. So next time you're on Ben Macdui and it's a bit misty and you think you hear footsteps behind you, don't let it worry you. Don't be frightened, because you could be being followed by one of the world's perfect beings.
Now back again to the northwest coast, where Duncan's trying his hand at a bit of golf. And there aren't many courses that ask you to make a drive out over the Atlantic.
Well, it's well over. I'm going to kill the clubhouse. The clubhouse. Oh, you got bulletproof glass in the building. Well, like many mountain people, I think that golf is a complete waste of a walk in the country, but I cannot think of a more beautiful place to be proven wrong. Here in Durness, this is the most northerly course in the country, and I'm about to be given my first ever golf lesson. Ian, I've been given this box of balls to lose. Oh wow! My name's printed on them. I better not lose these things. I really better not lose them.
Well, if we find any after you've gone, we'll post them back.
Frame them.
Yeah. Okay, you see the black and white marker in the middle of that's right in the middle of the fairway.
Yep.
And you see the green just away to the left.
Oh, the green's
there,
it's way out. How long is
this?
this hole?
This hole 311 yards.
311. Okay.
Oh.
Oh well. Wow.
Fantastic. That's a great shot.
I think I've
Your
snapped
first shot for how many years?
Oh. 32.
I believe you, thousands wouldn't.
There you go.
Okay, we'll try the driver now, I think.
That was a surprise. You were integral in starting the course and designing it.
Well, designing it, yes. I mean, it was Francis Keith, the local councillor. It was him who set the thing up, really, initially.
Yeah.
He got it in motion. Perfect, absolutely perfect. And then three of us, we were the only ones who really knew much or anything about golf. So we set the course up, the three of us.
Must be fantastic to have it in your back door now after all of that
absolutely,
travel.
and it's something we're very proud of.
Oh, great.
It's turned out great.
Oh, well, let's see if I can not embarrass myself on the second shot. And I'm not to lift my head or look at where the ball's going. Right. How many members has the club got now?
Well, the club's got about 100 members. That's male, female and junior. We've got quite a number of members from away that come maybe here twice a year and take out a membership.
Well, it has the peculiarity of being is it the most northerly in the UK?
That's correct, on the mainland, yes.
Oh, well, lucky it's not too cold today.
No.
So do you have tricks to keep yourself all relaxed?
It's probably best not to have your wife with you, but...
I can't say that.
Can't say that on camera, no.
If there was anything that I thought would be difficult about this, would be the putting. Whacking a ball is fine, but the subtlety of putting, that just looks like a game of frustration to me.
You've got to look at the contours of the green and have a look, see which way you think the ball is
going to
fall.
So that's why I need to go down.
Fall. Yeah. So you want to be aiming.
So if I aim for about here.
So I'll hold the flag for you.
And kick it in with your foot when it gets close.
A little bit hard, but quite a good line. So you see how it fell back at the end?
Yes. Too hard.
Well done.
Ah, well, that's the first one.
I think I won that hole, so...
So I'm standing the drink.
Uh-huh.
Now back to something a bit more energetic. By this stage, the Cape Wrath challengers are spread out along the course. While some are heading up and out to the lighthouse, others are already on their way back to the ferry.
That's a good job today, isn't it?
Do you want to catch me on the hill? I'll be going slow then, don't worry about that.
Any bottles left?
Yeah, there's bottles in there's bottles here. Go for it.
Take two of those.
Have a drink and there'll be a couple of bottles.
With a staggered start to the race, it's hard for us to figure out who's in the lead. But the competitors seem to know just what the score is.
There's sort of four of us trying to set in the pace. We got into a steady pace, good on the hills, but you couldn't see the lighthouse until the very last bend. And it was quite surreal. It was a beautiful countryside there. And once you get into the sort of mindset of just running in the countryside, there's people around you, but it's so relaxing. You can get into a good stride and you can get sort of carried away.
32-year-old Mark Ford is from London. His normal sport is adventure racing. In fact, this is the first time he's entered a road marathon, and it's quite a different discipline from the hills.
Since December, I've been running to and from work, which is about 6.5 miles each way. And then that's been my sort of training, and it's just worked wonders. I've been running since I was 14. My dad got me into running. And I think it's actually being out on the hills. As part of my adventure race training, I'll go away for weekends and go training on the hills in Wales, Scotland. Set off, and you know that you've got about 2,500 feet to climb. And a few of us climbed Ben Hope on the Thursday afternoon, and that was over 3,000 feet. So we knew, right, in the space of a marathon, you've really got to climb the sort of the height of Ben Hope.
Leading the field for the women right now is 37-year-old Annabelle Stearns. She's a seasoned marathon runner, but it's the first time she's tackled the Cape Wrath event.
Some friends of mine did it last year. I'm from Kent, and they enjoyed it so much that we all came back this year. I like off-road best, but we don't have like hill running in Kent, but I've done lots of off-road marathons like Beachy Head and South Downs and things like that, so that's what I like doing.
It's not quite an adventure race because it's on the tarmac, so it's a different thing. You're surrounded by the beautiful hills and everything like that, which is very inspiring, but at the same time you don't quite feel like you're part of the hills because you're on the hard ground underfoot all the time.
In hill running, the pain comes on quite quickly, then it goes again depending if you're going uphill or downhill, whereas in road races it comes on much more gradually. So it's mentally it's quite a different ballgame. One isn't any easier than the other, it's just a different kind of challenge mentally.
Get the beauty of the off-road scenery and the kind of the wilderness, but without having to navigate. You know, someone's laid the route out for you. There's marshals, there's water. How perfect is that? Where if you do something like the Carrymore Mountain Marathon, you've got to single track runs and you've got to navigate and stuff. So this is laying it out on a plate for you, really.
Everyone has their own motivation for taking on this challenge, but no one more so than Joe Riley.
I've got a specific reason for wanting to come up to this particular run. I've heard it's the toughest marathon in the UK, and my brother was diagnosed with cancer in the last year, and we ran the Choreatic Challenge last year together, which is another tortuous run and cycle, and the diagnosis for him was fine. He's had surgery, he's going to be okay, and they thought I had symptoms as well, so the deal with the devil was that if I didn't have surgery I would run Cape Wrath, and as it's turned out, well, the first diagnosis was I wouldn't have surgery. So I said, right, I'm doing Cape Wrath, but as it turns out I'm having surgery anyway in about a month's time to try and prevent cancer I've got spreading as well. So that's the reason for being fit for surgery was really worth it, and obviously the scenery is outstanding.
Now the runners are heading back for the ferry with only a sprint of 4 miles or so around Dunmess remaining. But the forced break of the ferry crossing isn't good news for the muscles.
It will probably totally seize up by the time we get over the boat there. But it's been very good.
And all to schedule, are you ahead of your time? Or
I don't have a time. I live by random theory.
How was that this morning?
It was hard work, but it's just beautiful out here.
It's so lovely.
You've just got to deal with all the different gradients and the different surfaces and everything, which is all part of it, because I like doing the hill running.
It's probably the spirit of it that just keeps you going, and it's just so lovely running over, the Cape. It's just really amazing, because every corner you turn there's another beautiful view in front of you.
So that's pretty good. You're in at a decent time.
Yeah, not bad. Just about on schedule for what I want to achieve.
The highlight of the run so far?
I think just the next dip along, looking across the sea with the tide out in the sands and the sun on the turquoise waves is superb. Absolutely lovely.
So when you're hammering on, you've still got enough time to have a good look and a think about where you are?
Oh, you've got to enjoy it. It's such a superb area that you've got to enjoy both the run and the area. And that's been really fabulous.
See, it's like beating your head against the wall. It feels good when you stop.
When you get back to the boat, it's quite good. Although you stop and your body hardens up and that. It's quite good to get some food and stuff, rehydrate a little bit, and then you just kick on.
Bye-bye.
But that's the course, that's what you've got to take. If I get delayed or whatever, 15, 20 minutes, so be it, you know what I mean? That's part of the fun of the day, you don't know what's going to happen.
I didn't realise how much effort it was going to be to run one injury.
Yeah.
It just takes so much more hard work to kind of hold everything together,
Are you trying to compensate by
trying to
changing its stride?
Yeah, it doesn't work very well. So I just took my time and really enjoyed it. It's an absolutely beautiful run.
So slowly but surely, the runners head back for the final stretch.
Right, cheers.
Because you go across in the group again, it's like another race almost. You've got 4.2 and the guy just says go, and you just go, although you've stiffened up your natural instincts to stop running, everybody else is going, so you just go back into it, so it's quite good. it's good to have, you're back in the group for the finish, which I quite like as well.
First half a mile is really difficult, and then the legs get moving again, and you pick the pace up again. But it's just another challenge, you know.
Well done, all of you, brilliant.
The feet are absolutely fine, everything else is falling apart. I need a new set of knees and a new set of calves, and I'm going to sack my coach after this as well.
Yeah, I'm tired, but just another 4 miles. I'll cope. I'll get there. Not very fast, but I'll get there.
Good running. Just do the 400 metres, that's all. Honestly. Trust me, honestly. Well done. So we're in the last 800 metres of the race, and unfortunately the runners have to run past the finish point, go down, and then come back in. So it's a pretty cruel finish to a very long day's racing.
You can do it, you can do it, come on!
With the racers piling in, all with different start times, no one's yet sure who's in the lead. But this seems like a pretty convincing time.
3 hours 6 minutes, 38 seconds. That's pretty good. So it's good. My first proper road marathon.
That was the winning time.
Hopefully so. I know the second guy was 8 minutes behind me at the ferry.
All right, okay.
So I think it. I hope.
Yeah, that's a good margin.
Yeah, I thought it might be a few minutes behind because he was just behind me at the lighthouse. But I felt so strong. The guy in front of me actually, he blew up on the first hill at the lighthouse. I'm sorry, I'm walking up.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it will spurs you on.
So will you come back next year, do you think?
Definitely. I think we've reserved our accommodation, so
Great.
I think we'll be giving our cheque to the organisers for next year.
And it looks as if Annabelle Stearns has achieved a remarkable time as well.
So, how was that run
Lovely.
for you?
I enjoyed it.
And your time?
3:20.
Okay, so do you think that's the top women's time?
I think it might be, yeah, but it's hard to say because everyone starts at different times, don't they?
And then the highlights from today's run, what did you think about the course in particular?
It was beautiful. It was just lovely looking over at the sea and the lovely beaches and the mountains and everything. It was gorgeous. I really enjoyed it.
Well, good luck and hope that 2:20 or 3:20 stays the time.
Thanks very much.
Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So I did about 3:30. So I hope I've come the first in my age group, which is over 45. But great run, really exciting, really brilliant.
So, before you get a chance, how was that?
Oh, it was horrible. Oh, it was beautiful and horrible at the same time. I was in bits for the last 8 miles, just cramping up. So I was just happy to make it across the finish, you know. Cheers.
It's brilliant, absolutely fantastic the day. The weather's superb. The views when you came back to get the ferry, with the tide going out, the sand and the sun and the hills. It's just a fantastic place. Great fun out there today.
Lily, how did that go?
Much better than I expected, actually.
Yeah? It looked like you had a pretty strong finish.
Yeah, it really hurt all the way around. Yeah, but the views were just incredible today. You could see Sandwood Bay, over to the Cape, and yeah, I had a really wonderful run, and I think I beat my time from last time, which is
So
a
what
surprise.
time did you come in at?
3:50 something, I think.
Yeah, so
Got to
that's...
stop my watching the excitement of seeing a ferry arrive. So yeah, it's great.
So will you come back next year, do you think?
Oh yeah, every year it's a firm fixture in my diary.
Lily Dew's final time was 3 hours 50 minutes and 52 seconds, which puts her into second place for the women. Emma Brown came in third with a time of 3 hours 53.28. But out in the lead, it's Annabelle Stearns with a time of 3 hours 21.13. And she's also the overall second fastest runner here today. A great achievement. And third place for the men, it's Malcolm Green with a time of 3 hours 25.02. Scott Ferguson came in second with 3 hours 21.25. And coming in first, over 15 minutes ahead of everyone else on his first proper road marathon, is Mark Ford with an outstanding time of 3 hours, 4 minutes and 51 seconds. There's still plenty more runners out in the field, but we're heading back south to catch up with those backpackers as they enter the final phase of their 2-week trek. It's been an amazing 2 weeks for the 2008 TGO Challengers. Day after day of what seemed like almost perfect weather, and now they're all getting near to their destinations. And once again, there's a choice of finishing points, 21 locations, between Aberdeen in the north and Arbroath in the south.
When I get to Skurdiness, will be the 6th time that I've done the challenge, and it's the first time I've really had sun. I've had snow, I've had sleet, I've had rain in many of the other crossings, but I've never had sun. I make a point when going into a shop, not looking at the newspapers. I avoid the television, I blank out the radio for 2 weeks. I just want to be chilling out in the wild.
At least it's a nice day, isn't it? Your needs are simple. You know, you walk, you eat, you sleep, you drink. I personally believe that physically you purge yourself of a lot of toxins in your body.
Because it's coast to coast, it is a major undertaking to walk from one side of the country to the other. I've never really sort of measured it properly. Like I've never weighed my sack. Like I'd probably never come again if it weighed too much.
And as the eastern coast approaches, it's time for everyone to adjust back to normal life and reflect on a successful challenge.
When you get home, the one thing that you appreciate is when you sit down in your armchair and you've got your cup of coffee there, just how wonderful home is. And you don't take it for granted quite as much as probably everybody else does.
You feel really good to have finished it because it is quite an achievement, I think, to have walked all that way successfully.
Oh yeah.
And it's a good feeling. Plus you're meeting all people you've met other years, you know, it's the same, a lot of same faces, and just it's a big friendly event.
The first time I did it, I didn't realise the social aspect of it, and that was something that I really enjoyed. And this time it's been great, sort of coming back, meeting old friends again, even though I've only done it once before. It seems like you get to know everybody very quickly. A couple of days rest, it would be nice just to turn around and go back again in some ways, but it'll be a bit more of a lonely crossing then. So.
If I had time, I'd love to walk back.
It's always strange finishing, I think, because you go home and it's just like, what are we doing now? You know, it's just a bit flat when you go back. And
start planning for next year.
We've started that already.
And the final act before the celebrations can begin in earnest is dipping your feet in the North Sea.
We've had a good crossing. Weather's been great, sometimes a little bit too hot. But I mean, in saying all that, better than being rained on. And we've enjoyed it.
Done. Come on, you've got to stick your feet in.
Obviously the satisfaction is I've done it and I'm made up, and I've got one more to go for my 10th, and I'm not sure when I'm going to do that. Let me feet cool down, I think.
Quick slip.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
And that's nearly the end of the 2008 challenge. The 26th crossing is complete, and it's time to recognise the achievements, from the first-timers to the hardy veterans. And our very own Cameron McNeish is there to do the honours. And that's it for this month's adventure show. Next month we're north of Inverness for a coast-to-coast crossing of a different sort, the Highland Cross. We'll see you then.